This video is going to cover three critical aspects of chess calculation. The first, what calculation is. The second, my 5-step process to calculate like a chess master. And the third is how to generate calculation exercise so that you can practice. Because as we all know from my last video, practice is the most important thing that many chess players don't do. So what is calculation? Well, I really like how Grandmaster Jacob Agard puts it, which is that calculation is seeing that which you do not automatically see, which gives a clear distinction from intuitive pattern recognition where the majority of chess is played, and calculation, which is reserved for critical positions where there may only be one good move. The funny thing about this relationship, however, is that your pattern recognition is what will tell you to calculate. This is the sixth sense that a chess player has to develop. It's like when you hear Hikaru say something's a little off here and then he delves into some deep lines. Let me give you an analogy to help you understand. Let's say you're driving in a busy city like New York and you have Google Maps, or God forbid Apple Maps up, and you only have the map but without the route plotted in. This map is like your pattern recognition, which will allow you to get from A to B with quick intuitive decisions based off the landmarks around you and your general knowledge of the area. But let's say it's a Monday and your intuition is yelling at you that today is going to be a bad day for traffic, based off of your experience that every single Monday is a bad day for traffic. Well, what you'll do here is turn on your route planner, which will give you a specific path through the chaos to reach your destination as quickly and efficiently as possible. Calculation is your GPS, and the destination is checkmate. So now we have a good understanding of what calculation is. I'm going to give you two example exercises. The first, I just want you to follow along the process with me and try to get it down. And in the second one, I want you to be able to pause the video and give it a go for yourself to get a little bit of practice in. All right, here's the first of the 5 steps. Your intuition is going to tell you that something about the position is a little bit fishy. This is something you can only develop through experience, much like how you know Mondays are always going to be a bad day for traffic because of the countless Mondays that came before. And after your intuition's tipped you off, you need to take a step back and make some general observations about the position with a fresh pair of eyes. Identify key things like king safety, material imbalance, and the best and worst pieces of your opponent and yourself. In this specific position, the way that I would assess it is probably saying that the king looks a little bit airy with our knight and queen being very well placed. Material looks equal as far as I can tell, but black has the bishop pair. Also, our rook is under attack and our knight is under attack, so we're probably going to have to do something quite immediate, otherwise we're going to lose pieces. Step 2 follows on from your assessment with the identification of candidate moves. This is by far the most important step, because if you don't even consider the right move, then you're never going to have any chance at calculating further moves. In this step, we need to look for the moves that are not immediately obvious to us, and we need to start with the most forcing moves like checks, captures, and attacks, but on a higher level, even some positional threats potentially, like damaging pawn structure or creating an outpost square. In this specific position, my candidate moves would probably be knight to b5, because it's a forcing move attacking the rook, rook to b1 as well, because it attacks the bishop, and maybe knight f7 to fork the king and the queen like this. Also, queen e2 looks quite interesting because it attacks the bishop, and I'm seeing that maybe there's a knight to e6 fork that could follow up. A slightly more advanced candidate move that I might be able to find as well is queen to f7. And the point of this one is that I can see that after the rook captures it, then I would be able to capture and fork the king and the queen. But I'm not just playing hope chess and saying, please capture my queen. I also have got a concrete threat on the h7 pawn, which does threaten a mate in 1. So that means that my candidate moves would all be knight to b5, rook to b1, knight to f7, queen to e2, and also queen to f7. Some positions practically solve themselves in the candidate move stage, which I think is sort of the case in this position, where if you find the move queen to f7, then you're probably going to be able to calculate it fairly easily. But for the sake of the video, we're also going to take a look at the other moves and see how we can discard them. Starting with rook to b1, it attacks the bishop. And we can say that the queen will most likely take the knight here because this knight is quite annoying. So I'll assume they play queen takes on c7. We take the bishop here, and then maybe they go queen to c6. This is now a very annoying light square battery aiming at our king, and we probably have to play a move like f3. And this is already very, very awkward. I'm not a big fan of this one, but we'll put it on the back burner because it's still a fairly unclear position with no more forcing moves. So not a big fan of rook b1, but we'll leave it for now. Let's take a look at queen e2. Queen goes to e2, we attack the bishop, let's say they capture this rook in the corner, and then I go for knight e6, attacking the queen, attacking the rook. Let's say the queen moves somewhere, I take the rook, the queen takes it, and then I take the bishop in the corner. So already we could probably evaluate this position as being somewhat equalish and unclear, but if you do see a move further, you'll even see that black has one forcing move of their own, which is queen to f6, forking the knight and the rook. Often a good habit is to try and end the calculation on your opponent's move rather than your own. That way you won't miss any resources from them. So looking back on it, queen e2 actually is just a no-go. That's a blunder, so we can discard that one fairly easily. Let's take a look at knight b5. Knight b5 attacks the rook like this. Let's say the rook moves out of the way, and then we move our rook out of the way. So we appear to have solved some problems here. We save the knight, we save the rook. Black decides they want to save their bishop, and even more than that, we're actually going to try and go for the win here with knight to f7, and you might get very excited at this variation, especially if you didn't see the queen f7 one, because you know that after the king steps to the side, you can go for knight h6, king h8, and then this queen sack, beautiful smothered mate, everyone's favorite. But it's very, very important that you don't play hope chess and get overexcited here, because obviously black is going to play the most resilient defense. Rook takes on f7. And on queen takes on f7, queen b6, you'll go, uh-oh, actually my knight is trapped. It doesn't have a good way home. Black has these two wonderful bishops here, and the queen is going to team up on the light squares, and white is actually the one in huge trouble. So by being very concrete and not playing hope chess, we can actually discard the move knight to b5 as well. This one doesn't work. And the final one before queen f7, we also have to look at knight f7, because this is the most obvious first move, and I think many of your candidate move. Your calculation might have gone something like rook takes it, they can't take my knight because I have queen f8 mate. And if they try to capture my rook in the corner, then I can go for knight to e6, but maybe you missed queen g8 here. And if you saw all of that and instead said, aha, but I have knight to e8 here, look at me, I'm now threatening queen f8, then full credit to you, this is a very, very nice line. And black has no good way to stop this checkmate. But you did miss a defensive move that black had, and one very good way that you can spot these defensive moves is by saying, okay, knight e8 is my only way to make this threat. Well, what if my opponent just tries to stop this at all costs? So you rewind it back here and say, maybe they don't greedily take the rook in the corner and instead find this phenomenal move, bishop c6. Oh man, that is a lovely defensive resource, preventing the knight from going here. And yes, you can still play knight to e6, and after queen g8, exchange here, save the rook, but you're gonna have to play this position, and this position is very complicated. The knight doesn't have a clear way home, the pawn on a2 is hanging, and while yes, we have an extra exchange, black has the bishop pair. So this would definitely be another one to put on the back burner, and it would be one that I would be considering alongside this rook to b1. So if there wasn't queen f7 to consider, it would be a battle between evaluating knight f7 and rook to b1. But we do still have queen f7 to consider, so let's put it on the board, queen to f7. It's a beautiful, beautiful move. The idea is that if you capture the queen, of course, then we have this immediate fork on the king and the queen. King moves out of the way, we take it, they take here, we take back, and we're just up an extra pony. You can pretty much end the evaluation, I would say, after bishop moves out, and you can say, yep, I save my knight just like this, I save my other knight like this, and I have no problem whatsoever. So I would probably end that line about here. But you also have to see, okay, black tries to stop this mate over here with bishop g7, really the only move to block it. There is also knight to e6 as the follow-up, so we vacated the e6 square, borrowing an idea from queen e2, by the way. So considering these candidate moves is not always useless. You can borrow a lot of ideas that you find in the other candidate moves and send them into your other lines. So knight e6, obviously an attack on the queen, the rook, and the bishop, absolutely brutal, threatening a mate and the queen. Once again, if you capture the queen, boom, you're going to lose the game in the same exact way as the other one. So black tries the only defensive move, rook to g8, and while you could capture the queen here, which is a completely winning position, a grandmaster level calculator will play the move queen takes on g6. Lovely, lovely move. And the point is you're sacrificing the queen to vacate the f7 square for your knight so that your knight can go to f7 with a check. King steps up to h7, and it's absolutely smushed. Look at this. The knight is covering these two squares. The king is penned in by all the black pieces, and we play the other knight to g5 with checkmate. Really, really nice. So in this particular case, we didn't actually need steps 4 or 5 because we had a winning line, and a winning line is one where you either win a piece or deliver a checkmate. And that's exactly what happened here. But in the case that we didn't have queen f7 as the winning move, we'd have to use step 4, which is evaluating the final positions of rook to b1 and knight to f7. This is probably the hardest step as it requires strong visualization skills as well as all the knowledge that you used in step number 1 on how to evaluate a position. And the only way that you can build this one up up is by repeating these calculation exercises and gaining that experience. Which leaves us with the final step, and I think an underestimated one, step number 5, which is that you need to pick the position that you prefer. And this sounds very, very simple, but I see people going wrong all the time. They burn too much time and they don't go with their gut on the position that they prefer. Oftentimes it will be your intuition that tells you whether or not the final position of your calculation is the better one, and you just need to keep repeating this in order to hone that and then trust yourself. So don't waste too much time. Once you've done the calculation, you've already done a lot of hard work that your opponent probably won't have done, and you should be in good shape just to trust yourself and go for it. Now, sometimes you'll mess up and you'll miss a resource from your opponent, but don't worry, that's all part of the process. As long as you keep it up, you'll get better and better at evaluating and deciding between two options, and you'll get much more consistent with picking the right one. Alright, here's my second exercise for all of you. Please try and pause the video, follow that 5-step program, I'll have it on the right side of the video, and get that practice in. Okay, hopefully that was enough time for all of you to give it a good go. I'm now going to go step by step through the position, and you can see if your process matched up with mine. So starting off with an assessment of the position, I would say white's up material. White has an extra piece in this knight over here, but the knight's not very good. Black has some very, very active pieces, a lovely bishop pointing at the king here, and most of the pieces are actually very, very close to the king, so white's king is looking quite weak with just the bishop around. Also, we've got these two strong central pawns preventing the white queen from easily accessing the defense, and I would say the black king is quite safe. So that would be the main ways I would evaluate the position, and then I would move on to the next stage of candidate moves. So seeing as the white king is weak, the first move that I'm really attracted towards is bishop takes on h2, and I'm sure many of you were as well. Other than that, I quite like the look of queen f4, also lining up on the king, also queen h4, lining up on the king like this. And as well as that, if I get a little bit more creative and I spot this pin on the king, maybe I'm starting to notice as well, rook h3 is a nice shot, lining up on the pawn like this with a devastating checkmate threat. Maybe even I quite like the look of rook f3, exploiting this pin and lining up some queen e3 idea. So these are all my candidate moves. I like bishop takes pawn, I like rook h3, rook f3, queen f4, and queen h4. And now comes the time to start calculating some concrete variations, and we can start to discard some moves. So let's take a look. Bishop takes pawn. Let's see how this one goes. If we can get a concrete win here, then we can just finish up the calculation. So the king takes the bishop, queen delivers a check, king goes back, and not too sure about that one. We seem to have dried up a little bit. I don't see any follow through. No rook h3 double exclamation mark. They just capture it. Queen g3. They seem like they just block it. So yeah, there's no queen e1 follow up, and we have completely dried up the forcing moves. Yeah, so bishop h2, no bueno. Even though it looked very attractive and very nice, it doesn't quite work. So let's move on to queen h4. I quite like the look of this one, just lining up an attack. So queen h4. They go g3. This is the most reasonable move, at least to my eyes. And let's sacrifice the rook. Rook takes it. Very forcing move. King can't really do anything, can't run away. Otherwise, we've got all kinds of discovered checks. If the king goes this way, then that's just a huge improvement and our attack continues. So we'll assume they capture the rook for now. We play queen takes it, and once again, we seem to be drying up just a little bit here. I don't see a very good follow through. If we had like bishop to b6, but we don't because there's a pawn. So yeah, this one doesn't seem to have gotten all that far, and I think white is defending quite comfortably here. So that's a bit of a disappointing line there after queen h4, but maybe we can sacrifice the bishop. Take it, rook takes on g3, king f2, same idea, but once again, they're just blocking with the rook, and I'm not quite seeing the follow through. We go here maybe, this could be quite interesting, but they just have rook takes it. Rook takes on g7 now, defended by the bishop, also attacking our rook, and it looks like we're the ones getting mated now, which is pretty nasty. I mean, even something like this, at the very, very least, looks like a KO. So that doesn't look very good at all. Let's run it all the way back. I don't like queen h4. Let's try queen f4, just g3 once again. Quite an annoying move, and we're just forced to transpose. So definitely not queen f4. So queen f4 is a no-go, and we're left with these two rook moves. Let's try rook f3. Rook f3. I think we have the defensive move from white, queen to e1, which is very annoying. If white makes a nonsense move, then we have this check followed by a mate. But we can't just play hope chess here. White's going to try and defend as resilient as possible, and soon they're going to start bringing their pieces into the game. So I think this one's a little bit unclear. Maybe there's something in it. Engine says e3 is quite good, but we think we should put this one on the back burner first and take a look at the other candidate move. So let's look at rook h3. Rook h3 attacks this pawn, it's a very nice move, and the bishop is attacking the pawn. The benefit here is that after pawn g3, we don't just have to follow up with a sacrifice on g3, very nice arrow, but instead we can go for queen to e3, similar to the other idea where we wanted to play rook f3, except white didn't have the time for queen to e1 because we would just play bishop takes on h2, king steps to the side, and then probably rook h4 with a devastating discovered check. And very, very nice line here. We go check, here, check, here, mate. Extremely common pattern. Good one to know. So yeah, white instead goes for g3, and we have queen e3. Check to the king, and the rook really has to block it. King walks up, then we just have bishop f3, brutal checkmate here. King takes it, and the queen drops back with a mate. So the rook's gonna block, and you have to spot one last little trick here. Rook takes on h2. The king is the worst defender. It gets pried away from the rook, and king takes on h2. Even bonus credits if you didn't take the rook and instead played queen takes on g3. Taking the rook is also completely winning, but queen takes on g3, most brutal line here. King has to step back, bishop to f3. And if you block with either piece like this, boom, checkmate. The rook can't defend it. And if you capture the bishop, then queen h2 is a mate as well. One last line that might be worth calculating here is actually bishop c1 as well, which is quite interesting because your idea is that you want to go queen to e3, so you need to look at the moves of your opponent that stop that. But on bishop to c1, we do have bishop takes on h2. And after the king steps back, we can just play a move like queen g4. You can't take it because of the mate. And if white tries to, I don't know, recuperate their position like this, we just have rook h4 and the same old devastating checkmating threat like we had last time. Final move is king to f2. If the king makes a run for it, if the king were to escape, then maybe white's doing okay here, but we have the final move, queen to g3 with a checkmate. Look at that bishop, look at that queen. What a weird amalgamation of the black pieces. If you did manage to calculate all of that, then my goodness, you are a monstrous player and probably don't even need to be watching this video. But if you didn't get all of that, then don't worry, because I'm about to let you in on the best way to get all the materials you could ever need for your calculation exercises. Option 1 is to get a calculation book like Agard's Chess Calculation or Grandmaster Preparation Calculation. The first is that these are paid for, unless you want to take to the high seas, and the second is that these are mostly aimed at master level players looking to get even better, which is why I think that my option 2 will work best for most of you, as it is free and works for all levels. The first thing this option involves is clicking through the most recent rapid game that you've played and looking for the critical positions. So in this one, I'm just going to keep going through and then take note of when I think a position gets sharp. So right here, I think this is a critical position. White has just sacrificed their knight for this pawn, basically saying that after I capture, you're going to come in with the queen. So this is a very critical position and one that I think is important. I keep going through. I think this might be a critical position. White sacrificed the rook and is now going for an attack. And yeah, maybe this is a critical position as well. They're invading with the queen and seeing whether or not white actually has any attack. So after I've done that and I've tried to evaluate the critical positions on myself without the engine, what you want to do is go to share. You can see it in the corner here. Copy the PGN, and I'm going to take this over to Lichess. If you've paid for chess.com, then you can also just do this by clicking the game review button, which is right behind my camera there. So once you get over to Lichess, what you're going to want to do is go to learn, go to study. This is how you get free game reviews, by the way. Go to my study, create a study, call it whatever you want, call it like rapid games or something, just like this, and change the visibility just so that no one else can stalk your rapid games, and then create the study. And on chapter 1, just copy and paste the PGN that you just took over from chess.com like that, create it, and now we have the game. And at this point, you can get your free game review by going down to the bottom here, going along to this tab, the one with like the bars, and then request a computer analysis. So click that. But the first thing you should do before this loads up is go to this tab here, this little tab with the three lines, and disable the variation arrows. Also disable the best move arrows. This is very important so that you don't get the right answer spoiled for you and it messes up the exercise. Now what I want you to do is click back through the game and compare with what you thought the critical positions were. So in this one, if you remember correctly, I thought that this one was a critical position right here. And okay, I was right, that was a critical position, but I'd missed a couple inaccuracies earlier on, which I didn't realize. But we did play the right move by the looks of it. And any other critical positions? Okay, I thought this one was quite important. That one's not necessarily a critical position. and this game was actually quite nice. I finished off with a nice mate. Like if white would have gone up like this, then this, then this, then I would have had a knight to a5 with a checkmate, which is very nice. And this is where the calculation portion would come into play, where you actually build up the practice. In this specific example, what you want to see is my opponent's made this double question mark move. How am I able to punish it? In this one, I actually did find the refutation during the game, which is knight to e4, because it defends the g5 square, and then I'm allowed to take the knight for free. But if you didn't find that during the game, this would be an excellent opportunity to try and find that in the post-mortem. And for beginners, I want you to repeat this for every single double question mark move that you can find in your game that's played by your opponent. And then after you've run through all the double question marks that your opponent played and you've tried to calculate a refutation for them, what I want you to do is actually flip the board just like this, and you can run back through the game and try and find double question mark moves that you made and how your opponent could have refuted them. So yeah, I didn't make any big mistakes this one, mostly just some inaccuracies. But for a beginner, you definitely will have a bunch of double question marks, I'm sure, so definitely try and solve them from your opponent's perspective as well. Intermediate players should do this for single question mark moves as well as double question mark moves, and very advanced players over 2000 maybe might want to start doing this for even inaccuracies as well as the other two, of course. Repeat this process enough times and I promise that you will start to calculate like a chess master. Thanks to anyone who watched this all the way to the very end. I hope it was helpful, and if you enjoyed it and my style of teaching and would be interested in some one-to-one coaching, then do check out the description and send me an email. But other than all of that, thanks for watching, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in another video. Bye!